I want to point a shout out here to say hello to Microsoft Teams. This is it's a session that is about, it's a value proposition session. It's to help people who have never seen Teams, people who don't understand how Teams could help them see Teams in action. It is not a class to teach you about Teams. If you know somebody like that, grab the link and send it to them. This class down here, this Microsoft Teams Upgrade Planning Workshops, this is a class for our IT side of the house and our change managers. If you're in that role, you may want to make sure you take that class because those classes will help you get Teams stood up and rolled out in your organization. We have all kinds of workshop materials for that. Everything in purple is end user training. Sometimes I get the question, what is an end user? An end user is somebody who their day-to-day job is inside of Teams. They don't have a technical responsibility with Teams. They don't have a change management responsibility or a decision-making responsibility. Their responsibility in Teams is to collaborate and work with their team. Okay, that's an end user. So we're in the Get Started with Microsoft Teams class. Today's class is a little bit about chatting. It's a little bit about meeting. It's a little bit about Teams and channels. We do a cursory overview of calling, right? And then in level 2, we go deep into meetings. So today's meeting review will be a little bit about scheduling and conducting, but we go deep in this level 2 class. If you do a lot of meetings or attend a lot of meetings, you'll want to take that. We have an applications class. That's because that's a new concept for us. And our level 3, part 1 is a strategy class about setting up teams or setting up work groups and teams and taking kind of a critical thinking, putting on your critical thinking hat for that. And part 2 is Sarah and I's bag of tips and tricks. I have a question in the chat that says, how long is the training? It's 60 minutes. And all right, I'm going to let her grab the rest of this. All right. All of these classes are available right here at this live link, which is part of the resource we handed out. Let's take a look at our learning objectives today. So today we're going to talk about how to set up your profile notifications. We're going to look at chat and calling in both groups and one-on-one. We're going to share and I'll show you how to share and collaborate content and messaging, and we'll schedule and conduct a meeting, but it'll be super bland. We're not doing any deep on meetings because we have a whole class for that. Make sure you sign up for it. And then we're going to look a little bit at Teams and channels. All right, let's do a quick overview of Teams, just so everybody is on the same page before we jump in and play around with it. So today you're probably doing a lot of these things that you see on the screen. You're talking with people, you're meeting with people, you're collaborating on projects, and you're probably doing that in a variety of ways. Maybe you're chatting, maybe you're emailing, maybe you're attending meetings in person or virtually or both, probably more virtually now, right? Just, hey, by raise of hands, how many people are 100% virtual meetings now? I am. I have been for 15 years, and so is Sarah. Sarah and I both have worked virtually for years. You might use multiple different software today in order to actually collaborate on projects or on processes, right? And I'm seeing lots of people raise their hand. They're 100% virtual meetings. All right. So today you do all of that in all of these different places. You have different platforms and different software, different whatever you're using to be able to do those things. It looks like almost every single one of you is meeting virtually 100% of the time. That's awesome. Love it. Lovely. Great. All right. So Teams, what's unique about Teams is it allows you to take all of those things that you do and bring it into a one-stop collaboration shop. Pretty cool, huh? So you can manage your contacts, you can chat, you can call, you can host meetings, you can schedule meetings, you can share files, and here's where it gets cool. You can collaborate or co-author on those files at the same time, right? Talk about your multitasking. Don't you love that? Teams offers a really cool way to manage people and processes and projects all in a one-stop shop. It makes it transparent, yet gives everybody their workspace that they need. I'll show you that today. And you can integrate those third-party business applications. So let me just make sure that I explain that, because I'm not talking about, of course, you can integrate your Microsoft applications, right? But this is the ability to integrate third-party applications. So let's say today you use Trello, or maybe you're in a help desk situation, you use ServiceNow or Zendesk or Freshdesk, or maybe you're in HR and you're using like ADP and Kronos, right? you can bring all of those into your workspace and truly have that one-stop, comprehensive, collaborative workshop, right? How many adjectives can I put in that sentence? All right, let's move on. So let's talk a little bit about chatting and calling. So in Teams, you're able to send messages, like chat messages, and both in a one-on-one and group situation, you can find those easily. You can easily find past conversations. So you actually don't have to find them. They're just there. You resume them, and you just pick right up where you left off. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's really cool. You have the rich text formatting options. You can have fun with graphics and app mentions, and you can attach files. And then with calling, everything's pretty much the same. If you're used to using platforms like this and you've used this before, if you've had a dial pad before, you'll probably have that again. And then you can set up your favorite contacts. You can look at your calling history and your voicemail. All right, let's see how it looks in Teams. Here we go. So here we are in Teams. Just want to give a cursory overview to what we're looking at here, so everybody, just in case we have some folks that have never seen Teams before. We have right up here your profile. We're going to look at that first. And this is a search bar. And it's just like using any kind of search tool. It's very robust. If there's something you're looking for in Teams, this is definitely the place to go look for it. Oop, there we go. This right here is your menu. Now, we have a lot of names for it. We call it the left rail menu is what I like to call it. Some people call it the purple menu. And when you're looking at this, you may look at this and think, well, she has a lot of buttons, bells, and whistles on her menu. I don't have all those buttons, bells, and whistles. And that's because Teams is highly configurable. So for instance, if you have the freemium version of Teams, that's a hard one to say, you might not have this calendar icon. And if you are in a large corporation and you have an IT department, then they can turn these things on and off at will. So the one thing you do have is Teams, but you may not have some of these others. All right, and that's true for a lot of things in Teams. It's very configurable for the things that your company will use and need. We call this the left pane. This is everything you're working on. We'll go over that a little bit. And this here is your staging area. So I just want to point something out. Notice I just keep scrolling back. This is where all the action happens. As you can see, lots of conversations, some of them kind of fun conversation has happened here. And as I scroll back, you'll see this conversation started back in August, right? And it's still here. We refer to that as persistent chat. So we'll go over that in a little bit, but noodle on that for a little bit. Why is that a good thing? Right? All right, so we're going to start with our profile up here. I'm going to click on that. As you can see, I'm logged in as Grady Archie, as my alter ego, my alias, if you will. And he is a beautiful Great Pyrenees puppy, who's really not a puppy anymore. She'll be 2 in June, but she still acts like a puppy, a 100-pound puppy. Anyway, so you have your statuses here. So a couple of things I like to mention when we go over status is if you're coming from a Skype environment and Skype is still on your network, you may have a situation where your status doesn't automatically update in either Skype or Teams, and that's because Outlook, your Active Directory, or your status in Outlook can only point to one or the other. So if it's currently pointing to Skype, then it's not going to update on its own in Teams. And once you roll Skype completely off your network, then it will. But up until that point, you'll have to hard set your network or hard set your status, which is pretty easy to do. You just come in, you click on the one that you want. And when you're done with that, you come in and you click on a different one. And if it is updating on its own and you clicked a hard status like do not disturb because your mom called or something, you can always just reset it like that. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing I like to point out in this class is this set status message. I love this feature. I used it all the time in my previous role, and I worked in a global role, just like I do now. And I might want to let people know the hours of the day that I'm going to be available because being global, right? And so I would use this to do that. And sometimes I would forget, and then 3 days later look up and see that my hours for Monday were posted and it's now Thursday, right? So I've done that before. So the way to get around that is they've added this retention process here. You can add a custom, so you can have it expire at a certain time. You can also make sure that if you have an OOO is what I call it, but an out of office message going on, that it shows up when somebody's starting to send you a message in Teams. It does that even in group chats. That's nice. All right, the other thing I like to go over is these settings. So this is how you get all set up. When you first get Teams, this is your go-to spot to make sure you have everything configured the way you want it, right? So you can choose your background, you can choose your language. You can also manage delegates. So if you're somebody who supports somebody else, the person that you support should be listed here. And if they're not listed here, then you want to call them and tell them how to get right here where it says your delegates, and they should type in your name, and then they will be listed there for you. And then you have this privacy. This is really just setting up access for anybody who can ping you when you're in a do not disturb status. So you'll still get notifications. So if you're in a do not disturb status and this person that pings you is not on a priority access, you won't get like a banner pop up or anything like that. And then this is the biggie here. Look at all of that to set up. There's a lot going on in Teams, a lot of different reasons to get notifications, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. Everybody has their own level of notifications they need. I want to be notified for everything. Okay, I'm just one of those people. I'm not really completely that way, but you might be somebody who only wants to be notified for certain things, right? So you have options here. So let me just give you a couple of options, a couple of ways that I set mine up, and then you can go in and configure yours how you see fit. But for my personal mention, so this is somebody that they've gone into Teams and they've app mentioned Grady Archie, or in my own world, they've app mentioned Carol Albro, and I'm going to get a banner and an email. So that means I'm going to get 3 notifications. I'm going to get this activity feed up here. I'm going to get the pop-up in the bottom right. That's called a banner. And I'm going to get an email saying that somebody app mentioned my name. And I want that kind of notification because if somebody's app mentioned my name, it must be something important. And so I want to know, because that's just how the culture is here at Microsoft, right? We don't do that unless it's important. So, and then channel mentions, you'll see I have that only showing in feed. So I have choices. I could get a banner, an email, or a banner, or I could turn it off even. But I have it showing in feed. That means it's going to show up here in my activity feed. I check that every day, so I'm not going to miss anything, right? But I don't have to have a banner and an email and all this other notification. So you can go through these and make decisions on how you see your life handling all of those. Then you have your calls here. You can set it up. Now, if you're in the desktop version, you have a few more options than what I'm showing right here. But basically, this is where you set up your simultaneous ring, your forwards, your voicemail. And if you're coming from the Skype environment, then you've done this in Skype, and you'll do it the same way in Teams, and it'll be in this setting, but through the desktop version. All right, so that is your profile in a nutshell. Pretty easy, huh? That wasn't that hard. All right, so let's take a look at chatting, and then we'll take a look at calling. All right, so the first thing I want to do, I'm just going to start a chat. I'm going to click on this new chat icon right here. It looks like a pencil in a box. Now, let's see, who should I chat with? I think, well, in Grady's situation as a new employee, so I'm going to chat with Henrietta. There she is. So that Typeahead came up because because she's part of my network, and my Active Directory from Outlook is pointing to Teams, right? So it was able to find her easily. So I just went ahead and picked her. I can come down here. And as you can see, we've had previous conversations, right? She's a new employee. I welcomed her. I gave her some direction on things to get help her get onboarded, right? She has a link, some stuff she needs to review. Now, just a quick orientation. This is a one-on-one chat. And as you can see, I have chats and files, right? We haven't shared any files together yet, but we could. Chats and files. I have 2 other apps here that come automatically in a one-on-one. I have organization. This is just a bird's eye view of where Henrietta falls in the organization. And I have activity. And these are things that Henrietta and Grady have done collaboratively, right? And when they did that work. So that's just what we're looking at. This is our staging area. Like I said, we've had conversations prior to this. Looks like we shared some Giphies and had some fun. And I could continue this conversation right here. I can also add somebody in. I kind of want to show you what that looks like when I add somebody into a one-on-one. So I'm going to add in Alex. I got to spell his name right though. It's always a precursor to getting it right. There we go. So add him in, and you'll notice that I get a brand new workspace, right? And the reason why is my conversation with Henrietta was private. Your conversations in chat, all of these conversations are private. And it's a little bit different when you add somebody to a one-on-one than it is when you add somebody to a group. I'll show you what that looks like as well. But that's just, something to note. Notice you also only have chats and files. You lose the other two applications. Those only show up in one-on-one. All right, so I haven't actually written anything, right? So my staging area is still blank, and here's my draft, right? But if I wanted to just jump back and talk to Henrietta, I already have her pinned right here. So I can just jump back, resume that conversation, or I can jump to Alex right here. I pinned him as well because I work with him on a regular basis. And as you can see, I've had lots and lots and lots of conversations with Alex, right? Goes back a long ways. We're buddies. So a lot of people about now say, I'm not sure I like this persistent chat thing. What is about this persistent chat? How do I delete it, right? It's kind of funny. But and I say, well, you don't want to delete it. So instead of ever having to hunt for that previous conversation, it's right there. It's like you just pick it right up and resume that conversation right where you left off, right? So think of it as like that good friend that you have. And it doesn't matter if you haven't seen each other for 2 years. The next time you see each other, you just sit down and pick right up where you left off, right? So that's persistent chat. All right, I'm going to show you a little bit about organizing first, and then we'll go on to what group chats look like. All right, so let's look at this little square here. So it's really a rectangle, but it's a square of processes here. We have append and recent, and then we have recents and contacts. So first of all, those of you coming from Skype, and you're wondering, where is my contact list? It's right here. There's your contact list. And as you can see, you can click on any one of these contacts and see that previous chat, right? Here's my conversation with Adele. Here it is, right? So, or Nestor. I haven't had a lot of conversation with Nestor or Jordan. So all of it's there, but I'm not sure why you would spend your time on your contact list here, because these are just individuals. If you go over to recents, the 4 things, you can have 4 different types of instances here. You can have a meeting. They have these little purple icons like this. You can have a group chat, which looks like an icon that's been divided by however many people are in that group. It could get crazy, though, after you get like 5 in there. You can have a one-on-one like this, right? And then you can have bots. They kind of look like this. They have some kind of icon to represent that bot in there, right? So those are the 4 things you can have. Now, we're not going to talk about bots today, but if you want to learn about bots, you can take the Learn to Use Apps in Microsoft Teams. I see a question. So you can or cannot delete a chat? You cannot delete a chat. So let me show you something. If I come in here and I go to something that I wrote right here, right? I come in, I can edit, I can delete it, that one message, right? I can come into something somebody else wrote, and, well, let's see. Whose conversation am I in? Let me get to one with Adele. So here she is. I can come in here. If I click on this, notice I cannot edit or delete anything that she wrote. And then if we go to a group conversation here, and I click on the 3 ellipses, notice there's no editing or deleting, right? All right. Here's what you can do. So when you first have a chat, it's going to show up under recents. You haven't pinned it yet. All right. So it's going to show up under recents. So let's just say it's this logistics trip to London, right? This is a conversation. In this conversation is 2 people, Patty and Grady. And my conversation is sitting right here. I can come in. I can pin this. And once it's pinned, here it is. See, I can move it around. Now, once something's pinned, I can organize it the way I want it, right? So I like to have my meetings at the top and my group chats in the middle, and then my individuals down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to, I'm going to pin my Poly bot. I keep my Poly at the very bottom, or any of my bots at the very bottom. So I have an organization method. You probably have your own as well. So you can pick these up and move them around as you want to. Now, when they're under recent, you cannot do that. They don't move around. All right. So when they're under recent, they're in order of activity. So the one that's had the most activity is at the top, the one that's had the least activity is at the bottom, and eventually will fall off. Okay, that's how it looks. And sorry, let me get back here. There we go. So that stays in that order. You can't move it. Now, let's just say I was done with this London trip, so I can just unpin that. Where'd it go? It's right here. So I can go ahead and I can hide this, right? Logistics for trip to London. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide that. Now, if I wanted to go back and find it this is one of the reasons why you might want to name a chat, is because it's easier to find. So I can come in here and I can just say logistics for trip. There it is, logistics for trip to London. So I can click on that and it's going to bring it. There it is. It brought it back up. I can go ahead and unhide it and I can go ahead and pin it, right? So no, you can't delete a chat. You can hide it and you can always go back and find it, right? But there is no way to delete a chat. All right, let's talk about what you can do with these 3 ellipses because they're kind of cool. This is kind of where all your power is on your chat. You can mark something as unread. So let's just say, for instance, that you were out of town for a week and then you come back and everything here is bolded, kind of like, right here, this Adele, Alex, and Pradeep looks like I have a message there that I haven't read, right? If I click on it, it'll say that I have already read it. It'll take the bold away, right? So if I click on something and I go, oh, I didn't need to do that right now, I can just go ahead and mark that as unread. And maybe I want to mark something specific as unread because I don't want to have to scroll. I want to know where I left off, right? Maybe it's a long conversation. I want to know where I left off. So I can just mark something, a specific message, as unread, right? And it puts this little borderline here. And then that way when I come, it also makes it bold. When I come in and I scroll back and I get to this last read, I know where I left off, right? So that's important. That's one thing you can do. You can also mute conversations, both individuals, groups, and meetings. You can mute. You can even mute a bot, right? There's lots of different reasons why you might need to do that. With individuals, you have one other option here, and that's that you can notify when available. So those of you coming from Skype that are used to stalking somebody till they're green, you can still stalk them, okay? Not that you need to. You can also do that from contacts. You can come here and see, you can stalk them from here. All right. So that's the difference between recent and contacts and pinned and recents and all the different things that you can do. All right, group chat, right? So I want to show you something. So here I've got a group chat. It has Alex, Adele, and Pradeep in it, right? So I'm just going to show you what it looks like to start a group chat. I'm going to invite the same people, but what I want to do is I want to create a group chat with the same people, but I also want to make sure that it's differentiated from this conversation. This is our normal day-to-day conversation. And I want to create a special conversation for something that we're doing on the side, okay? So I'm going to type in Adele, and then you'll see the persistent chat that Adele and I have has shown up here, right? And then I'm going to invite Alex, and that persistent chat went away because Alex, Grady, and Adele have not had a conversation together yet. So then I'm going to invite Pradeep, who I think is, yeah, he's the other person in there. There we go. And there's our persistent conversation that we've had ongoing. This is our regular team meeting, and we've had a lot of fun with it, right? So, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this little drop down here, and I'm going to name this group. And I'm going to say, let's see, what are we going to work on? We're going to work on the new ice cream. I must be craving ice cream. It's a thing. Pitch. So it's to an ice cream company. We're working on a pitch. Right, so now I have a brand new workspace that the same people that I work with day in and day out are a part of, but I have a clean workspace with them, right? So that makes it easy. Another reason why you might want to name the chat of a group is so that it's easy to search on, right? Ice cream pitch is a lot easier to remember than the 5 names of the people in the group, or even to type in, right? All right, so I did that. So I'm just gonna take you back. Well, we'll just use this one, okay? All right, so here we are. Let's first just send some conversation. So I can send a chat. Hi team. Created this space for us to work on the new pitch together. There we go. All right, so here's my first conversation. Now this pencil becomes available to me. I can change the name, or if I take it out, it'll just show everybody's name that's part of that group. Right now, I want to show you something. I've got this A down here. If I want to format my messages to be a little bit more interesting, I can use this little A. I can click on it and it opens my box like that. If I click on it, if I keep clicking on it, opens, close, open, close, right? So I have access to all my rich text formatting up here. Most of you guys know how to use this. You know how to bold, italicize, and underline, and strike through, highlight. You know how to do all that. This will make your font sizes larger or smaller. You have color fonts that you can pick, right? You have some other options over here too. I like to point out a few of these. Mainly, I like to point out this TX here. So I can come up here and I'm just going to grab some of this content here. I'm just going to pop it in. And notice there's a lot of formatting on here. So if I wanted to strip out all this formatting, that's what that does. It's kind of a neat feature. I can also do this question thing. So I can just say, it's not really a question, but it's just a highlight, right? So I can just say, hi team, your thoughts on, and then come in and put this in and say, using ice cream, or using the pitch from the appliance factory group we did last year, right? And then, it's a good thing we have Spellcheck. There we go. Fix that little baby up. So when I post this, it sort of makes it stand out because it's got this shadow box across it. So that's just another feature you can use. I think it's kind of cool to make things stand out. You've got a lot of things up here. You can embed a link. You can use code snippets. You can insert a table or a horizontal rule like that for formatting if you want. Either way, we go over these in detail in our Learn Tips for Taking Teams to the Next Level Part 2, so make sure that you grab that class if you can. All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and dump that one. All right, a couple other things I want to point out. We've got some icons here below the compose box. So I can come in here and I can use the exclamation point, right? And notice I can make something important. When I do, it puts this bar on it, puts the word important in there. And if I were to type something out, the pitch date has been moved up to tomorrow. There we go. And by the way, when I have this box open like this and I hit enter, it's just a carriage return. So you actually have to hit the paper airplane. So now it puts this exclamation point. You might have noticed earlier when this was still bolded that there was an @ symbol and an exclamation point, and that was letting me know that, and there was also a bell, right? So the exclamation point was letting me know that there was something important. To use the bell, use this urgent. And I want to point something out. This notifies everyone in the group every 2 minutes for 20 minutes that they have an urgent message, right? And so you want to be careful about using this because they're going to get a banner, an email, and an activity notification every 2 minutes for 20 minutes on their desktop and on their mobile versions if they have that. So we go over that in a little bit more detail in the Learn Tips class too. This is a configurable piece, so if you're looking at this thinking I don't have an exclamation point or I don't have urgent, then that's not completely unusual, okay? All right, then we have, you can share, let's share a file. Maybe we'll come in our OneDrive. I could have shared from my hard drive, but I can also share from my OneDrive. I'm just gonna share the marketing plan, there we go. Say, let's use this information to start our presentation. There's that spelling thing again. It is Monday, right? Okay, so now it's shared, and if I come up here to Files, you'll see there it is. I can click on it, and I can access it and still have my live chat. And I'll show a little bit more about that when we get into meetings. All right. So I can continue this conversation here. I can also directly call. I can do that with a one-on-one or video chat with them. I can add somebody in. Maybe I want to add somebody to this group. So if I leave it, by the way, if you leave a chat, it's private. You can't get back. And I want to show you if I add somebody, so I have a choice. I can decide that they don't see any of the chat history, and that includes files, or they only see a certain number of days. Maybe, 60 days ago, we changed our approach on something, and so now I only want them to see the last 59 days. Or I can include all of it. So again, that's managing that privacy. All right. A couple other features down here I want to show you are emojis. These are kind of fun. We have a lot of moving ones. And Sarah and I have found it fun to use all the moving ones in a row because then they don't stop moving. And if you only use 3, they still kind of stay big. I don't know. We're easily amused. Then you also have these stickers, right? And the cool thing about the stickers is you can choose the way, what it says on it, right? So I can come in here and I can say, works on my machine. Let's see, I don't know what you were thinking. Like that, and then it's going to say that. I can pop that in, right? Or I can use GIFs. So GIFs are topical, and so they're, this is it's not a Microsoft product, it's an outside product that's been brought in, right? It's an organization. So they're topical, it's based on what's trending right now and on your location as well. So what's trending in your world might not be trending in your buddy's world, right? So I can come in here and I can say sales, right? There you go. All right. So those are lots of fun. There's also a lot of other apps down here. You might see we go through these in our Learn Tips for taking teams to the next level. It's kind of fun. We go through the YouTube and places, and so make sure you sign up for one of those classes. All right. Is there anything I missed? I don't think so. Let's look at calling. We're going to go over here to calls. And so I'm on the call menu here. A lot of people right now say, why don't I have that cool little dial pad? If you have a dial pad like this, that's because you have a calling plan. It's not necessarily a Microsoft calling plan, but it is a calling plan. And you'll notice we have, you can set up your speed dials. You can add to your speed dial this way. Just type in their name if they're on their network. If they're not on your network, you can type in their, you're going to set up a contact for them and import them in. You can create a new group, maybe like the Northwest Sales Group or the Learn and Development Team, right? And then you have your contacts. You can set these up. This is just your list of people that you contact on a regular basis. From here, you can chat, email, video, chat, or call them. You can add them to your speed dial from here, or remove them. You can add additional contacts this way. You can look at your history and see who's called you, who you've missed calls from. You can call them right back or chat them right back. And then your voicemails. I don't have any voicemails right now, but if I did, you'd be able to see the transcripts. All right, so that's chatting and calling. Let's take a look at meetings. So meetings can be scheduled in Outlook or Teams. They can run one time or reoccurring, just like they could probably in any previous world you're coming from. You can invite internal and external participants. I'll show you that. You can do that in chat too. Just use email, and you can use the meeting notes feature. You can share live apps. You can post files. You can record, and you can access all of that in a one-stop shop. Let's see it in action. All right. I want to first show you how you can schedule. So let's start in Outlook. There's 3 different ways to schedule in Teams. And way number 1 we're going to show you is Outlook. And so what I do is I have this handy little add-in right here that says Teams Meeting. If you don't have this add-in and you want it, make sure you ping Sarah and tell her you need it. So say, I need the Teams add-in, and she'll give it to you. It's just a link. So you click on that and notice it opens up everything. So all of a sudden now I have all of this. So about now I get this question, why do you have a dial-in number and I don't? Some of you do, but some of you will say, I don't have a dial-in number. That's part of that calling plan. So if you are looking at this wishing you had a dial-in number, you'd have to have a calling plan. And it's not necessarily, like I said, not necessarily a Microsoft product. It can be an AT&T plan or some other calling plan, whoever your phone company is. But what that means is if you have the dial-in, then you can use both Voice over Internet Protocol or VoIP and PSTN. If you do not have this call-in number, then you're using Voice over Internet Protocol for all of your calls. Okay, so internet calling. Then you have this join link. About now, people ask me, how do people who are not part of my company join the meeting? Well, obviously they can call in if you have that, but they can click on this link and it will take them to a web version of Teams, and they will have access to the meeting and to the parts of that meeting to the degree that your network allows. And so it's not a problem. And they don't have to download anything. They don't have to pay for anything. Now, another thing I hear is, well, why would if I can schedule in Outlook, in Teams, why would I schedule in Outlook? Well, if you're a delegate, you set meetings up on behalf of somebody else, or if you're using a distribution list, you may prefer to use Outlook for that. All right. Let's take a look at where to schedule in Teams. Now, a couple of places you can go to a group chat or even a one-on-one chat, and there's this little calendar icon down here. If you click on it, it'll create, it'll give you the whole form, right, to fill out, and everybody will be preloaded. Now, a lot of people ask, well, okay, why is that helpful? That's helpful when you have a group chat of 50 people and you don't want to enter 50 people's names, right? So it's kind of like using a distribution list, but that distribution list is set up in a chat, right? And then you click on it and everybody's preloaded. Now, you can also go to the calendar icon. That's the most common place. And as you can see, before we jump into scheduling a meeting, I just want to do a quick orientation on the calendar. As you can see, Grady's got quite a full calendar. He's lots of half-hour meetings that happen for him. And I want to show you he can move forward in his calendar by week using these little icons here. He can do it by month using this drop-down. We're almost into April. Isn't that crazy? And then if he wants to sync back up to this week, he just clicks on the word today, and then it says right here, you're up to date. You can also change your view. You can look at this by day, which is a little weird, or by work week, which is how I like it, or by regular week. I want to point out before we schedule a meeting, you see this Meet Now. So that's something we go over in Run Effective Meetings. And then when I click on this, you'll see this drop down live events. We don't go over this in detail in Run Effective Meetings, but we give a shout out to it. All right, so let's schedule a meeting. All right, so we're going to come in and let's just do a budget meeting, budget 2020. I'm going to add some people, the usual suspects, Adele, Patty, Alex, Pradeep. There we go. All right, I want to show you something before I add somebody external. I'll show you that in a minute. But you can see here I get this suggested times, right? 3 to 3:30, 3:30 to 4, 4 to 4:30. And that's all based on today's date. If I change this date, say to April 8th, right? Then the time suggestions will change. Okay, so you have, that's kind of a nice little feature. But is the minute that I add in my guest from outside, right? All of that goes away because it can't see his schedule, right? I can add optional attendees here if I want. I can make it repeat, and I'm not going to do that today, but I'll show you what one looks like. But I have options here, including a custom one. So if you have, some people have, I've had people ask, well, how do I have a meeting that happens, you know, uh, 1 week on a Thursday and the next week on a Tuesday and the next week on a Wednesday? Like, I'm not quite sure, but there's a custom feature in here, and I'm sure there's some formula for you to figure that out. There's that option there. We go over channel meetings and run effective meetings, so make sure you attend that to learn more about channel meetings. Then you can add a location. So if I don't, my work group in this demo tenant, this is a demo tenant, right? They're all virtual, so we don't have any locations in here. But if you're used to being able to add in a specific room based on the building that you're in or the building that you used to be in, then you can still do that here. All right, and then I've got my scheduling assistant. I can come in here and look and see that I can't see Irvin's time, but so far it looks like my time at 3 o'clock today, or on the 8th, will be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and make that an hour, and I'm good with that. I'm happy. I could add my optional attendees and still add my locations if I want to. I'm all happy. Okay, I'm going to send it. I'm good. So that was April 8th, right? So I'm going to go to April 8th. There it is. I think I actually made it 2 hours. That's all right. It's going to be a long meeting. It's a really big budget. I can right click on this to edit, or to go chat with my participants, or to join, or to even cancel it, right? Now, people here about now ask me, can you color code it? I'm a big fan of the color coding of my calendar too, as you can well imagine with all the trainings that we do. But we're not there yet. It's ... It's coming. All right, so I'm going to click on chat with participants because I don't have my meeting for a week. I have some other things. I need to get my pre-stuff done. All right, so here I am. I'm in the chat. I'm just going to come look for that. It's somewhere. Here it is. No, it's not that one. I got to go find my budget meeting. It might be at the bottom. That's what there it is. So right here at the bottom, because it hasn't had any activity yet, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pin that. And when I get up here, whew, that was a long scroll. I'm going to put that at the top. Now I've got my meeting pinned. All right. Okay, so I have just a little orientation here. I've got 4 applications in here. Notice I have no plus sign, so I can't add an application to a meeting the way I can a chat or a channel, right? You want to attend the Learn Effective or Learn to Use Apps and Teams if you want to learn more about that. But that's one thing. But we've got these 4 here. I've got chat, I've got files, I got meeting notes, I got whiteboard. I can join from right here. If I want to go back to my meeting details, I can click on this. I can use this to see who's here. I can add additional people, right? And I can start my chat conversation. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to say, hi team, thanks for meeting weekly. I know this is a long meeting, but very important. There you go. So I can do that. So everybody got that chat. They got the calendar invite. Now they've got my pre-chat. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to share the company budget that we're going to review. There we go. I'm going to ask them to review this in advance. Our meeting so we can spend our time online collaborating. There we go. So I'm going to send that. And now they've gotten this information, right? So I'm going to go ahead and join. There we go. Whew, there we go. All right, so we are now in the meeting. right? So no one else is in this meeting. When we do the other one, we show it with a lot of people in it, and that way you can kind of see what it looks like. But we have a counter here. It's not counting right now, but it should be, and that might be a traffic issue, bandwidth issue. And then we've got you can turn on your video. I can unmute myself. I can use this to share, so I can share a preloaded PowerPoint. I can share my desktop, where I can share a specific screen. I have 3 screens, or if I had that spreadsheet open, I could share the application. So I have lots of different applications open. I have way too many applications open, but that's what I have to do to actually run this. So I can do that. I can also share one of these 2 whiteboards, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share something just so you can see what that looks like. I'm also going to start the recording. So whenever you see 3 ellipses in Teams, that means there's more stuff for you to do. There's more for you to learn about. So go ahead and click on them. I'm going to start that recording. Everybody's going to get that banner up here that says, hey, you're being recorded, right? I'm going to also take meeting notes. So I'm just going to quickly come in here and say, if it's going to let me. All right, well, we'll come back to that. I can also have a live chat conversation. And maybe now I can have a meeting note. There it is. Budget 2020. There we go. And I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to do this. Go and say, I can @mention people if I want. So I can @mention Pradeep will Pradeep Gupta will provide the numbers with merchandising. I can't spell today. There we go. So I @mentioned him. You can do that. You have all the rich text formatting tools that you had in chat as well. All right. And if I want to, a lot of people want to know, how do I multitask? What if I want to talk to somebody else, chat with somebody else while I'm in a meeting? You just click on chat over here, or on Teams if you're in Teams and channels, and come over and chat with that person or that group, however you want, and then just click back on the meeting to get back. So that's super easy to do. You can look at your participant options here. So pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I want to point out here, right here is where you would move your slides if you're the presenter, right? Right. So I'm going to go ahead and end that meeting. And then as you can see, that meeting is baking. And if somebody they weren't able to make the meeting, I can @mention them and just say, Adele, sorry, you couldn't make the meeting. Please see the meeting notes and files. Actually, meeting notes, files, and recording to get caught up. So she'll get a ding. It'll bring her here. And from this very spot, she can get caught up on everything. So she can review all the previous conversation. She can review the files, going up to files, click on those. She can even edit and co-author, make comments, right? And when she closes it, it all saves. She can look at the meeting notes. She can look at the whiteboard, had we used it. And when this meeting is done, she can click on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a meeting that's a reoccurring meeting. Here's one. So you can see this has happened. They've had chats. They've shared some crazy Giphies. Look at the size of that fish. And they can just click on the meeting and watch it right here in the chat, or they can go to the stream and watch it as well. They just click on this and go to the stream and watch it. And they can look at the meeting notes, which in this case are extensive because that meeting was going on for quite some time. All right. So that's meetings. Like I said, it was a pretty quick overview. Let's talk about work groups, projects, that sort of thing. We got about 5 minutes here. So oftentimes you have projects or processes that have a lot of spinning wheels in them, a lot of different places and people to manage and things to manage, or maybe you just have a public group that you need to be able to manage, right? So Teams and channels kind of gives you this built-in method for managing this and taking care of this in an organized fashion. So think of Teams as the team part as the who. That's who can join. Sarah likes to say the house, right? And then the channels are the rooms within the house. I always say the team is the who and the channels are the what. They're the place that you work. So teams can be private or public. You can have lots of different levels: owners, members, guests, and moderators, right? And in channels, they can also be public or private, and they have threaded conversations, and their meetings are embedded in the conversations instead of being separate, right? And members have a space to work. So let's kind of see that in action for a minute, and then we'll wrap up. All right, so I'm moving to teams and channels here on the menu. And I just want to point out, these are my pinned channels. So these belong somewhere under one of these teams, but these are the channels I use on a regular basis. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse those because you'll see them as I go through teams. So these are all the teams I'm working on. And then down here I have hidden teams. These are teams that I'm not a part of. I'm part of them, but I'm not working in them right now, right? So different than a chat, when you hide a team, it just goes below that dropdown versus going away and you have to search for it, right? With a team, let's see if I can find one here. There we go. With a team, as this is one that I'm an owner of, right? So I have a few more options here. I can even delete a team. A lot of people wonder about that because you can't delete a chat, right? From an organization perspective, I can pick these up and move it. I want to show you, this is a process team. So they've set up their channels based on a process. You can see they have a course request form, and then they have a classroom management and a virtual session management, faculty procurement, right? So they have theirs all set up. So different teams for different places. And let's just take a look. We have a process team. We have a building alerts team. So this is really like a public team that anybody can be a part of so that they can get updates on emergency preparedness or safety captains, right? Same with, let's see if I've got another one in here. You have department teams like marketing and engineering and educators, right? So a lot of different reasons for having a team. And then once you get in a team, you can see that the conversations have a few more options. Like you can have these banners, and your meetings are embedded. This is a meeting, and your conversations are threaded under the topics. That's kind of interesting, huh? So, but you can have up to 5,000 people in a team and channel environment versus only 100 people in a chat. So that's why those conversations are threaded. And then notice you have a tab line up here. You have this plus sign. You have this plus sign in chat as well, and you can build out a tab line. This is where they've built in, so they have meeting notes because they have a meeting embedded, and they've built in a calendar. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. They're using Planner, and then I think this is a OneNote, and this is just a folder off of their SharePoint site that they added, right? So, and they can continue to add using this plus sign. So these are their applications. So here's the difference between teams and channels when it comes to adding in applications. In a chat environment, between chat and teams and channels, in a chat environment, you are limited on the kinds of applications that work in a chat. And in teams and channels, all applications work. Now, again, the access to these applications is configured by the organization. So you may see less than what I am showing. All right, you can come down here to join or create a team. This is pretty easy. If it's a public team, it's going to be right here, and you just click on join a team. If it's a private team, you may need a code in order to search for it. And if you want to create a team, and not everybody will have this access, this is also configurable, but you can click on this right here, and it's a wizard. It'll walk you through the process. Make sure you attend our class on Learn Tips for Taking Teams to the Next Level to learn more about that. All right, we are at the top of the hour, so I just want to quickly run through our closure slides. My apologies. Teams is available on all platforms. So whether you're in a Mac or you're using a PC, right? Teams works on both. And whether you're using an Android, an iPhone, or an iPad, works across the board on those as well. Whether you're in Chrome or Edge or Firefox, works across the board on those as well. Now, here's what's important, though. It doesn't matter which of those programs which of those tenants you're using, the look and feel and the feature function experience that you're going to have is the same. So if you're a Mac user during the day and a Windows user at night, or a Mac user during the day and an iPhone user as well, or an Android user, right? Your experience between the two platforms and the two iOS systems is going to be, look and feel is going to be the same. So that's kind of a nice feature to have. So what's next? Well, definitely review your profile and get your settings all set up, and then jump in there, send a chat, schedule a meeting, do the whole pre, during, and post meeting thing and see how that works for you, right? Engage your work group and utilize Teams and channels and have some fun in those as well.